Mr. Bhairav Dalal is Associate Director at PwC India. Bhairav, good morning. Good to have you here. So SEBI on Sunday at its board meet approved REIT regulations, made a few changes compared to the earlier draft norms. Mr. Sharma, are the changes, and I trust that you've seen what has been put out, are the changes significant enough? I mean, does it basically clarify everything that needed to be clarified, or there are still complex tax issues, etc., which need sorting out?
I think Mr. Dalal should be in a better position to look into the tax-related things. What we as the fraternity from the industry believe that this is one of the most welcome steps which the government and the SEBI has undertaken. And this kind of structure will go a long way in ensuring that the liquidity-related challenges gets addressed, where the developers who are today suffering from the liquidity challenges, they have an alternative source of raising money on viable projects besides the banking system and the private equity guys. And wherever the SEBI and the government has got the feedback, whatever little bit I could observe from the draft what was circulated versus the final notification or final clarification which has come circular yesterday, there are certain improvements, and those improvements as and when they see the challenges at the ground level, definitely it will be improved upon, because nowadays we believe that we can communicate as well with the authorities and communicate the issues. If they are found to be genuine, definitely they get addressed.
Okay. Bhairav, why don't you run us through your take on SEBI, the changes that SEBI has made, and the big important ones which make all the difference?
So I think the key change that SEBI has done is reduce the minimum asset size in case of REITs to 500. This will help a few more players get into the REIT space. Additionally, it has also kind of made certain operational level changes. We'll have to see the final guidelines to see if at all they've allowed REITs to invest in LLPs, because that is something which the industry had demanded. We are hopeful that that would be something that they would have considered positively.
Sorry, REITs to invest in what?
In LLPs owning assets.
Okay.
So this will kind of make it slightly more tax efficient in terms of repatriation to the investors, which will effectively give a better return to the investors at the REIT level. In effect, it will increase the yield play, and therefore the better valuation will be available to investors.
Anything else in terms of changes which has been made? I mean, the minimum size has been, I think the minimum size is the same, right? 2 lakhs.
Yeah, those changes I think are pretty much the same. The key one, as I said, is the reduction
crores.
from 1,000 to 500.
So more players can sort of
more assets can come into play.
On the tax front, you know, what you were telling me earlier is that it's all clear. I mean, there are no real issues. The big one issue was the one-time capital gain tax on transfer of asset from the company to this special investment trust, and that is now that was exempted. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, that has been exempted. That is something, again, the industry had specifically asked for, because it's not really a monetization event, it's a swap. So what the industry has asked is allow the tax deferral to happen till the monetization event. There are some minor issues with respect to the way it's finally come out, but I guess it will just be addressed as we go on into this. It will evolve as a structure, I think.
Mr. Sharma, so I remember you and I talking about this transfer of asset to this SPV or REIT, right? So that exemption is there now, Mr. Sharma, right? That was a big impediment. That's what I remember you telling me.
Very, very true. Very true, very true. And that has been done away with, which means there is no immediate tax outgo when the asset gets transferred to the REIT.
So tell me, Bhairav, how do these REITs get taxed? I mean, what is the tax implication? Very simply. So there is this asset, there is this pool of commercial real estate property which is pooled together and which is offered to investors via a REIT structure. What are the tax implications?
So broadly, the investors will get 2 income streams. One is the dividend which will come out from these companies, and to some extent there will be interest that will also come out. So on the dividend there will be full tax which will be corporate tax plus the dividend distribution tax. And on interest, depending upon whether it's a foreign investor or it's a domestic investor, it'll be either a 5% tax or a full 30% tax. So that's the broad framework. Obviously, there will be some bit of complications.
And the dividend distribution tax, I mean, that is withheld by the structure?
Yes. So basically, the company declaring dividend, who's owning the asset, that company will have to pay DDT just like any other company in India. It's only when the interest is paid out, there is no withholding.
There is no withholding.
Yeah, but when the REIT ultimately distributes it to the investors, there has to be a withholding, which is 5% or 10% for the domestic investor.
The other point about FIIs participating, that is all clear now? How they will participate? I mean, is there still more clarity required?
So SEBI has really put it out in its regulations and even during discussions that it's up to RBI to amend the FEMA framework to include foreign investors to invest in this product. And my sense is if this has to be a successful product, you will need foreign participation.
You will need foreign participation. Mr. Sharma, are a lot of your peers wanting to do something like this pretty soon? I mean, you are a pure residential company, but there are others who have a significant pool of commercial real estate, rent-yielding properties.
Yes, we are aware of that. Bangalore has highest number of these commercial developers who, in our view, are too keen to tap this platform, and definitely they are going to avail of the benefits of the REIT. Bangalore today has highest number of leased space, more than 100 million square feet. And most of the companies which are today owning those assets, they are in the unlisted space. And we know the kind of challenges which these companies have been facing while trying to get themselves listed. So this REIT structure gives them an alternative opportunities to monetize and at the same time to ensure that they remain ahead of the curve because of this opportunity now they have got.
Right. Bhairav, you were just telling me earlier the basic issue when it all, I mean, it's the regulation and all is cleared out, etc., is going to be one about returns, right? What kind of returns will these structures offer?
Yes.
Because bonds right now are offering 8-9%. So REITs have to sort of top that at the end of the day. As you see it, do you see REITs being able to offer 8-9% plus in excess of what bonds are offering right now?
It's for the developers to really offer that. Otherwise, you're not going to see any sort of impact of this product. So unless the asset owners are able to leave that on the table for the investors,
are they in a position to leave that? Will it satisfy the first purpose basically of coming to the market with these structures?
Let Mr. Sharma take up that question because it's more of a developer related thing. I mean, whether they are in that position or not is something they know better than us. But as Mr. Sharma said, it's a way to look at it in the sense liquidity is going to free up. You're going to raise capital at 12%. If you have a decent asset, I think you should be able to leave that on the table for the investors for this market to pick up.
No, so these returns, how will these returns will be fixed, Bhairav?
No, they will not be fixed returns. It's a guidance which the asset owners will give in terms of how much lease space is already there, what sort of tenant mix is there, whether there is going to be any vacancy in the next 4-5 years. Obviously, all that has to be factored in while coming out with the pricing.
Yeah. No, so my point is, I mean, you know, usually when things are brought to the market, promises can be sky high, but what actually at the end of the day is delivered is you know, one only finds out when some time passes. So just to take that question to you, Mr. Sharma, that return question, how do you think this will work? How do you think these things will get sold?
Prashant, I think let us all agree that most of the developers who will be coming to the market, they have an established track record. And please do not forget, all of the developers, they have an appreciating yield. Every developer today enters into a long-term agreement, 9 years or so, 7 to 9 years, where every 3 years they are revising the rental part by 10 to 15%, that benefit also gets passed through. Then the capital appreciation also happens. Somewhere it will also get distributed at the end of the cycle. On top of this, we should also understand that in India, the rental yields are the lowest on a dollar term, where the economy is going to start showing all kinds of improvement. We are only looking at the current yield and trying to compare it with the corporate bonds, etc., etc. Tomorrow you will realize that the investors will look at increasing benefit, a capital asset which is of appreciating in nature, and all these things will allow them to score or at least the bank's fixed deposit A, and B, some of the reputed developers should be in a position to offer with almost no vacancy a much better yield than what you and me are looking for.
When we talk about the potential market, big numbers get thrown around, Mr. Sharma. But say over the next 2 years, can you tell us, property consultants have put out numbers, 150 million square feet of property can be up for, these kind of, eligible to be pulled together for these kind of structures, etc., etc. You said Bangalore is the biggest market in that sense, right? Where there are a large number of commercial property developers.
100 million plus.
Yeah. 100 million plus. That is your estimate, or?
No, you can ask any property consultants, they all know. The Bangalore has been leasing out on an average 8 to 10 million square feet of leasable space since last so many years, more than a decade. So everyone knows that Bangalore has a leasable space of 100 million plus, and among us the listed space, it may not be even 10 million square feet today. So the remaining close to 90 million and above will be available via this kind of an alternative route, is my estimation. On top of this, you also must have seen that some of the developers, they are trying to raise money, but since REIT was not available, they have so far not succeeded. All those kind of things will become a thing of the past. We are also seeing at the ground level hardening of the rentals in Bangalore market, in NCR market as well. Economy is reviving, and in that backdrop, these kind of actions we believe will go a long way to augment and support this industry.
Okay, I got that. Thanks very much for coming in, Mr. Sharma. Thanks for staying on. Good talking to you, Bhairav. Good getting that clarity from you.